Okay, my friends, this doesn't get any more serious than it is today. I've been studying the Turkey earthquake that killed tens of thousands of people just recently, back in a month or so ago, and of 2023, and it was absolutely devastating, and they still have no idea what caused it. Why was it so deadly? Well, we know it was a collapse and not necessarily an earthquake. All right, what caused the earthquake? Well, what is an earthquake? All right, the Earth's crust is made up of separate bits called plates, and they say they float around on the surface of the Earth. Now, the plates nestle alongside each other, so every now and then they do this, they're thinking. All right, now, the plates often try to move, and they're under tension, but are prevented by friction of the rubbing up against of adjoining plates. So they're sort of scrubbing, trying to move, and they can't. Sometimes the pressure builds up until one plate just takes off. Incorrect. I'm not saying never happens. It is not the case in Turkey. Absolutely 100% for certain, not the case. I will show you and prove it to you with no questions whatsoever. And this is the area that happened, and it was a disaster, and there is more disasters to come. I can show you how to see the possibility of a looming disaster. I cannot prevent it, although there are some ways that could possibly have some effect on preventing them, is to fill these cavities back up. This is a cavity collapse. This is not necessarily an earthquake, but this whole area is littered with voids. Let me show you why I can say that statement without any possibility of somebody saying I'm wrong. If you think you can say I'm wrong, say it. I want to hear it. But I want the people from Turkey to understand the condition that they are living in, as a lot of other people are too. But this specific area has a specific geology that is specifically oriented towards these events. Okay, before I get too deep into this, I want to make you aware. We have several books out. These are not my books. I have really nothing to do with publishing or anything of that business. But these were done by Paul Amatucci. And the first three books, I believe, are virtually identical. And the reason he did that, I discussed it with him, and he said the reason was he could put them into different categories. Like this is about basically geology, and this is about something that they're going to consider a whole different class of thought, titans of our world. And then the other one, I can't remember what it was, but I believe the first three are virtually identical, same books. They're not expensive, so if you bought all three of them, give two away, and you'll have two very good friends. No, I just want you to be sure that you understand. This is not my doing. In the next, and I don't think it's a real major issue, because we need to be seen in every different venue, and that's how they categorize things now. They say, well, this is a religious book, or this is this kind of book, and then they point it towards those kind of people. So he basically changes the color and the name of the, with the titles and so forth, this and that, a couple little things, and then it goes out into these different realms of science. All my stuff going forward, from now on, all my books, which Paul is going to be illustrating and publishing, is, again, I'm not going to be the publisher of these. I just do the research. Now, these will be, there won't be duplications of books. They will be, one book will be for the light research, and one will be for some of this. We're going to get into Pistis Sophia. We're going to get into creation. We're going to get into all of these stories about our ancient past, because this is where all this stuff relates to. It's exactly what I'm talking about right now. This is nothing more than things that were here. That right there, my friends, is exactly what happened in Turkey. This is exactly what happened. The blood was in between the muscle tissue. The blood ran out down the hill, and then these voids showed up, these big, huge voids. everything collapsed. You see how much big, this would be the more or less, well, you saw what it looked like. All of these blocks are there. They're there. And they're not just there, they're literally all over the place. But they're huge. This just happened to solidify in such a way we can see it nicely. But this even like tendons, look at this. You see this here? You have a tendon, and then it flares out into your muscles. But the tendon goes down, and I show you how it locks in, where it does lock in. You see that? That's a tendon locking in just like we just saw. But originally it comes out like this to an abrupt transition, another abrupt transition, and then there's usually one more. And then you get into your really floppy muscle. Now, you say, well, that could just be the salt running out of it. No, it isn't, because look at this. This is what they call slurpees. These are the small leucine-rich proteins at one time that sealed these layers between each other so they could be mobile but still be flexible. That was a sealer. All right, see, these are small leucine-rich proteins. That's what's called tight junctions. You see all these little white flakes? Those are the little white flakes of feldspar, which is collagens, which is membranes. I show this bazillion, hundred, trillions of times. Look. Hold on. Alright, those little white fibers are these little white fibers. Same exact same thing. Only this is a lung, so it doesn't have all of these little things. This has to go all kinds of different directions and pull and stretch, and you cannot let cracks come in between here, otherwise you get invaded. This is what tight junctions are all about. It's a biological thing, but tight junctions seal your cellular walls so that things can't squeak in between them and get down into your vital flesh. Above this was muscle and so forth. This goes out to muscle, actually. Anyway, there's a lot to think about here, and I go over it so many times. But here's what happened out there at Turkey, and I was hoping I'd hear from somebody, because they're still going to have some issues. Maybe they should look around this hill and see where this red blood is running out, because wherever it's running out, you're going to have a cavity. If you have a cavity, you're going to have a cave at some point. We know just one absolutely horrifying one happened. So I would think they'd want to look to see. Look at this. If this thing gave way and had run out of here, and all of these layers, and it depends on where it was in the body and what condition it was in. Because if it was flexed, look at this. This is the way your muscles are. And these are all the sarcomeres. I'll show them to you. But if it was flexed and it had some really heavy-duty blood balls in here, the really heavy-duty layers of blood, that's going to run out of there. And this is what would happen. You would collapse. And here's what these are. These are the sarcomeres right here. You see this? This is the layer above, which is the, where the grove is. This is like upside down. As a matter of fact, here, I'll tell you what I can do. All right, now we got it the right way. Here's the dirt up here. Below is all these sarcomeres. You see them? These are the ones that we saw over at Turkey. And they crack along these lines. But in between here, there's going to be blobs of blood in here. That's what runs out. That's where the key is. All right, and we can see them in this shot I showed you here. This is the exact same thing as we see here. I mean, there is literally no difference whatsoever. None. Zero. This one here has the blood all in between. That's the nature of a living creature. It just happened to petrify in such a way. I have ones that did that too. This one here is literally a piece of flesh. Hold on. You always want to put a taste of water on them, and then they can. The blood is still active in here. I'm telling you right now. You see that? How quickly it turned back into a nice red piece of looking meat. See that? I'm telling you, this is a whole new understanding of rocks. They're not just old, I mean, anybody that has any ability to understand biology can't miss this. And because of the unbelievable size of these things, it's just their mind shuts off, their eyes glaze over. All right, and this needs to be known. It needs to be discovered. It's like that song says, I'm not lost, just undiscovered. I'm alone with the things I recovered. Some can't see these things are out of place. I can tell by the look that's on their face. So I'm lost. Well, maybe I am lost, but this is undiscovered. Now, when I say undiscovered, people are starting to annoy me by telling me, you keep saying the same thing. I'm going to say it 10 million times. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. I'm going to say it until it's common knowledge. And this is taken already 12 years. And if you think I'm just going to stop because you've seen it once or twice, well, have a nice day. Go somewhere else. Because you will see this over and over. I always add something to it. It's never, ever exactly the same thing. There will be differences, and you'll see the sarcomeres, and you'll see the breaks and the striations, you'll see all the connective tissues, and you'll see these exist here on Earth as well as other places, including Mars. All right, the Mars crab has all of these muscles. It's almost literally identical to what this would be. And all that red blood is running out from that Mars crab, servicing sarcomeres, just like the ones that caved in Turkey. All right, this is that area that we're talking about in Turkey. This is from something that's called When the Earth is Angry. And I can see why the Earth would be angry. Watch this and see what you think. I'm going to stop it here and there. Boom, look at this. Look at all this stuff, these layers. I'm going to show you these in what I consider to be the reason this thing collapsed and what this is made of. Now, it's just gone. Where'd it go? It collapsed. It didn't just open up like this. It collapsed. And we will see that a little further here. There it goes, way down in here. Now, follow this down, and you're going to go right down into a hole, basically. You see this? Now, this is the material right here. This is why it collapsed. All of this is literally body tissues. This is a gigantic creature. This is the outer layer of the body tissue, whatever part it was. This is literally muscle, and I will show you this. I can prove what I'm saying, and you could prove it too by going out and getting samples of this stuff. I know exactly what it is. You will too when I'm done. This is literally layers of tissue with membranes. Then you run into the blocky sarcomeres, which I will show you very, very clearly. All right, and then in these sarcomeres there are pockets of blood, because you have to have blood to power these muscles. When it was alive, it needed a lot of blood, and that's where that blood was. And it leaked out because red blood, you see how it's real, like powdery? At some point in time, this leaked out down the hill, and all the trees that were downhill of this, I'm sure, were growing quite well, because this is very fertile, this red soil, because it's blood. And it ran down this hill. You can see it's a downward slope. Now look at that. That's a big chunk of blood right there. That's an artery. And that looks like a tendon ball. Now, watch where it goes. Again, here's that stuff. Remember that layering. Let's take a look at what muscle is like, because I'm telling you right now, that's what happened here. Well, I'll show you. All right, when I said these things exist here on Earth as they do, in space. That is true. Mars has the Mars blueberries, which are nothing more than the interstitium balls, shown it 1,000 times. Also, and again, people get upset because I keep showing them over and over. Well, again, that's up to you. You can stay or you can go. This is interstitium. These are the interstitium balls. These are the straps. The straps erode. The balls stay where they're supposed to. The skin squishes, and that's squishy skin. That's regular normal skin, and this is flex, pulled apart skin. This looks like it's sandblasted. You see this? Because there's no real water supply up there like there is here. The erosion is totally different. This is the Mars crab. This was from the Curiosity mission in 2014, I believe it was. And that's the crab, which is nothing more than an artery with a bunch of little blood vessels. All right? They service all of these sarcomeres. This is really what it is down here. And above it is the vein. Now, my good friend Gil, who is an autopsy anatomist, just did a video on this the other day. This is a real spongy, tough, fibrous tube, and this is just a floppy little tube, which is the vein. He opened the body up and showed it. He's very, very, very talented, and I worked with him for 10 years. Now, these are the sarcomeres. You see how they have the breaks? That's the red stuff. Red stuff is very fluid. That's why it ran out from underneath the in Turkey. See how it's all eroded out of here? Same. And I will show you mine here in my shop would have caved in just like it is in Turkey. I'll show you in a second. Now, these are the sarcomeres. This is on Mars. So here you have the huge, huge biology, exactly as it is on Earth. Huge, huge, huge biology. Now, here's the one that's in my shop. This would have been completely saturated with red blood. Again, red blood runs right out. You see how it's running out? Red blood just runs out. It's made to be extremely fluid. What's left here is the crab without its legs, because, you know, it eroded in a watery sense. Over there it's just powdery coming off. This is the tendinous portion, and then we run into the muscle, which is fed by the red blood. Well, this is a cavity underneath, and this would have collapsed just like it did in Turkey. And these are the exact particles, I mean the exact formations. And somewhere down here, a big pocket of blood just sort of eventually drained these contents out, made a cave, basically. So if anywhere around that whole mound, if they see a lot of this runoff, and they can test it, they can do a little chemistry on it to see exactly what it is and how the nature of it, and if they see it in large quantities here or there, somewhere it's running out of here. And then in that case, they should do some seismic testing in that area, because it's sooner or later going to collapse. I mean, it could go forever. That's the problem. This is one of those things that, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, here, look at this. This is nothing more than a piece of tendon. Right? And it's the tendon that links from like a bone to a muscle. And there's an abrupt transition on both ends. I have it in my Mudfossil as well. This one I showed you a minute ago. This one here. An abrupt transition. And there's another one right here. This, I believe, is the piece that we're seeing sticking up, because this is tough. This erodes pretty easily. The bones go bad in salt water. So I believe this piece right here is that tendinous piece. You see how it's sort of curved around here on the end and it's flat here? I believe that's what it is. Now, this is extremely dense connective tissue. All of these are membranous layers and layers of connective tissue. Above here is some, you know, red fleshy stuff. Down here is where you have exactly the situation they have here in Turkey. Right in there would have been a lot of blood, because this is starting to turn into muscle. There's a muscle attachment coming into this spot right here, and they need a lot of blood to work. Tendons don't. Tendon have no blood at all, almost no blood whatsoever in a tendon. So, but this, I believe, and this was a creature that died just like that. They say this took 100 million years because a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer. No, not at all. This is exactly, exactly like this right here. There's not layer, 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 layer. That's one guy's body, or a creature's body of some sort, and the blood serves the muscle. You show this to any anatomist, they can't miss it, and they don't. Nobody denies this. I haven't had anybody deny this yet. They just glaze over, walk away. Jose. These here, who knows? I know they made these walls out of chunks of body parts. Now, did they just pick them up like cells? I don't know. Are these just cellular walls? Because the video I'm about to show you is about tiled flooring, they say, in Oklahoma or somewhere. I'm going to show you in a second. But I like mysteries. And what I am doing is I am sending out requests to tour companies and things like that to go out, and they all go, oh, look at that, I wonder how they did that. Well, let's talk, let's engage, let me work with you. All I need from you is pictures, and go close up and look at these joints, and I'll point out things for you to look at. All I want is anomalies. Somebody says, well, who could explain this? Well, let's see. Send me the pictures, tell me where they are. If there's links, give me some links, and then we'll discuss it. Now, I want to have podcasts and so forth to go over all these things. I keep having people ask me about it. It's hard. I can't say yes to one guy. You know what I'm saying. I do, but it's very, very difficult. It's very time-consuming. If I could do it on a broad scale, and I do have some people interested in doing some, serious podcasts where this is a whole new science, absolutely 100% new. This changes biology. It changes biology absolutely too, but it flips geology completely upside down, and it changes our history, our spirituality, probably and possibly. I don't want to change anybody's spirituality. I found what I've been looking for. And I've been looking for it for a long time, and I never found it, but I finally found what I've been looking for. Now, this is up to you what you make of this. But this is what it is, and we will never, ever, ever, ever understand this if you want to keep listening to mainstream science. That is our main problem, is mainstream. Now, come back here, look at this again. Let yourself turn this off for a second and just stop and look at these structures that I had just pointed out. All of those layerings. Those layers aren't just sediments that deposited there. Those were bodily tissues. And above it is this, I believe it's olive grove, and it just collapsed because of the runoff of the red blood, just like I showed you in that rock. Now let's get here. You see, wherever it runs down a hill, the blood will run out. If there's enough, it'll create a gigantic cave. Basically, it just collapsed into a cave. It didn't just go nowhere. It didn't just open up. It's a collapse. And the whole earth moves during this collapse. And those are those sarcomeres. The whole thing is one massive body of something. I don't know what. You see that? This stuff can easily be tested. It's really basically almost raw blood. At the very bottom of all of this that ran out, there's going to be a layer of basically raw blood. You see, it's all running down that hill. See this? Boom. They're all sharp corners. Those are the sarcomeres. It's exactly how they work. Look at a chunk of blood. All right. This is what they should be thinking about. Where else in these mountains do you have a situation like this? Because the The muscle doesn't just go one little spot. There's muscle everywhere. You see this? I don't know where it is on the guy's body. But once you start to get into muscle, you got muscles, they overlap muscle. I don't know where that is on a guy's body, but it's muscle sarcomeres, which are these skeletal muscles. And it's leaking, so I would assume all these hills and so forth are bumps on that body structure. I don't know that for a fact, but if I saw a bunch of reddish looking blood running out of there, I would think there's a cavity going to be created somewhere under there. Whether that helps, maybe sometimes ignorance is bliss. You just live with whatever happens, because this could happen in a week, it could happen in 10,000 years. No clue. But if there's a ton of it coming out, you may even be able to cap it off. That's what I'd try first, and just make sure not a lot more comes out of there. And then monitor how much comes out of there. Because if it's coming out of there, it's coming out from a cavity. And these sarcomeres have the propensity, they have the inclination to crack on those lines. And when they do, the whole thing's going to go. It's not like there's like a boards across, and they just sort of sag. They snap. When they snap, they go. All right, I'm going to show you precisely why it would collapse, and I'm also going to show you precisely how the Earth shifts, because that is nothing more than the Earth shifting. These are nothing more than those sarcomeres that are in the ground, because the ground is biology, and it was at one time muscle. And these are the reason this specific region is in danger, because they fracture on these specific lines. Then these specific little bits shift. This is muscle, my friends. This was what you saw over there. When they see the shift of muscle, yeah, it's something collapsed, and the whole thing cracks easily. These are all little lines and plates. And there's this going this way and this way. So the thing can shift that way, and it can drop this way very easily, and that's precisely what happened. And this is going to happen again. I can tell you where there's going to be areas that are going to be susceptible to these kind of collapses. And they should be able to, maybe they can do something. I don't know what they can do. But I'm going to tell you one thing, 100% certain. Well, I'm going to go through this whole thing, but these are where the voids occur. And I'll show you why they occur, and how you can tell where they're occurring. But that was muscle. That's muscle. And this also, my friends, is biology. This is not millions of years in one picture. This is 1 hour or so while this gigantic creature died during the Great Flood that I have proven existed. And Yale Derek Briggs now agrees that there was a great worldwide flood from their paper in 2016. I will show you in a minute. And this is what caused all of these creatures to die and were preserved in what's called soft body preservation. Everything is wrong in geology. Everything is wrong in history. And they have diminished and destroyed our understanding of our past and possibly our spiritual existence, because it's been totally pushed under the carpet and laughed at, demeaned. So is that appropriate way to think about these things now, knowing that there was this great worldwide flood? Everything that was written about, now that I found dragons, I have giants, they're DNA tested, CAT scan, everything. Yale, Derek Briggs, supposed to be the top guy, who I presented all this stuff to way back, 2012. He's dismissed. Then they slid this paper under and they made it sound like all modeled sound. And I'll show you too. It's obvious what happens. A worldwide flood, very fast, all completely saturated with salt waters, silicates, preserved all of these creatures, the ones that I show. I've shown hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of species. Everybody's got them. Everybody knows about this now, except academia. They will not engage because it destroys everything they've said and supports everything that was said about the Bible, about Christ, about history, about the mythology, everything. They've been wrong about 100%. So if you're going to follow them, follow them. But the people in Turkey have a right to know the truth about the place that they live on and what's going to happen if they don't pay attention to what's coming out of these hills. Because once it comes out of the hill, that's the next case. Okay, we're going to get into the Turkey deal in a second here, but I just want to point out what biota means. It means animals and plant life in this particular region. The whole Earth is covered with biota, which is plant and animal life. Is that correct? Yes, it is. What does this say? Exceptional preservation of soft-bodied Ediacara biota, promoted by silica-rich oceans. And Derek Briggs is a signer on this paper. And what does this paper say? It says, Ediacara biota, Earth's earliest fossilized ecosystem of complex macroscopular multicellular organisms, occurs in a terminal Ediacaran strata worldwide. Yet how the fossils are preserved remains controversial. And it goes on to say, Ediacara assemblages, which are these creatures, consist of exceptionally preserved soft body forms like geese and all kinds of things, of enigmatic morphology and phylogenetic affinity. Many of these fossil assemblages are inactualistically preserved as casts and moles in sandstone. Actually, it's mud. Now, let's see what he does. He's taking credit for it. He's saying it's Ediacara-style preservation. No, it's Mudfossils. Derek Briggs from Yale University. Here we present evidence for this style preservation. Now, it was due to rapid, that means instant, early stage precipitation, whatever early stage means. Precipitation means just a lot of water falling, or a lot of water, one way or the other. And silica cements means nothing more than bodily blood tissues and, bodily fluids. They use bodily fluids now to make geopolymers. They put it back in, and it makes rocks. So all of this was done, and I know I've done it myself. I've made my own fossils. And it was facilitated by high silica saturation state of the oceans prior to their appearance. Now, just stop and let your mind understand what he's saying and all this nonsense that they throw in here to try to convolute everything so you don't understand what he's saying. All he's saying is that there was a great worldwide flood with a lot of salty water that preserved all of the creatures that died in an exceptionally fast, heavy, watery flood. Worldwide. Exactly what it says in the Bible. Exactly. And I have proven it very, very well. I presented this to Derek Briggs. Well, I tried to. He wouldn't look at it. And even after having CAT scans, well, let's go through the whole story. Derek Briggs, well, let's listen to the rest of this nonsense. We already know what biota means. It just means the plants and animals. We know Derek Briggs signed off on this paper saying exactly what I just said. What is this thing? Inactualistically. It's actually, they don't even know. It's not a word. In other words, he's used to making up a word. It's a microbial mat of sandwiches. It's nothing more than creatures all in one layer because of the flood. Endocardia just means, he must have just come up with this, because I never heard of this before. But it's just a period of time, they think. And he's saying it's right at that terminal layer, at the ended there, and then started a new layer. Yeah, it did. But that wasn't, it was 3,500 years ago, Derek. This is Derek Briggs. He's not one of my favorite people. And Yale is absolute, as far as I'm concerned. My own opinion of Yale is it's a disgrace. And this is the Yale. And he, you know what he said to me? He says, I'm not an expert at any of this stuff. Why don't you go find somebody that understands rocks? This is his primary research interest, the preservation and evolutionary significance of exceptionally preserved fossil biotas. This involves a range of approaches: experimental work on factors controlling decay and fossilization, studies of early genetic mineralization, organization, preservation, field work on a range of extraordinary fossil occurrences and their taxonomic description and analysis. I'm 20 miles from Yale. He refused for years and years, and now he's taking credit for and calling some kind of Edicardian-style preservation. Derek Briggs, as far as I'm concerned, sir, you are a disgrace to your occupation. And Yale is a disgrace for having you as a professor there. That's my own personal opinion, and I think this should be taken to a higher power. Because it will for you, my friend. You saw his paper from 2016. This is 2015. I had the DNA test done, 3 different samples, and I'll show you the different samples. And 2 of them were from giant human beings. That freaked him out. The first thing he said, what are you, a creationist? And then just refused to engage for 4 years at least. And so I did all the stuff myself. I said, I'll do anything you want. And he would say, oh, you'd have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. I did everything. I did everything. And I mean, I did it well, too. I didn't do it I did it to the top people. I had CAT scans, I had DNA tests. He refused to examine them, and now he's taking credit for it. And then they slide the paper on. There's only been, I think, 150 reads on that paper in the last 6 years. So nobody even knows that we had a great worldwide flood, and Yale confirms that. So my research has been confirmed by Yale. I take credit for my research. Yale is taking credit for my research. I want my credit. I really don't care, I gotta be honest with you. I just don't want them getting credit for it. And this was it. It was excellent quality DNA sequence obtained for the 36-inch tip and the lung. The other one, the mud hand, I'll show you, I have a hand out there. And that's a little more mud fossilized. They call it mud stone. The other ones are literally still got blood in them. And these were Homo sapien, and I mean, just the whole thing. And I talked to the lab director because he was assaulted too. And I talked to him, and he said, just make sure that everybody understands. Roger Spur, took the samples and sent them the samples. I didn't send them the entire rocks for them to take out. These, you want to see the size of the rocks? Well, here you show. Here's the size of the rocks. That's a left hand. That's I think it's three or 4 feet wide. I can't remember now. But this goes back 12 years. This is the grip skin. That's silvery stuff. That's the cleave right there in between your hand. And this runs off to your little finger, and that runs off to your thumb. I have fingers, I have knuckles, I have all kinds of stuff from these. And that's the grip skin, this little silvery peeling off stuff. And that's a really heavy-duty skin. Now, that's one of them that was tested in DNA. Now, this one here is almost 3 feet long from here to here. From there to there. That's the little pad that goes in between your fingers so they don't bump each other. This right here is the fingernail. And I smacked that off so I could get down into the blood, because you can't get blood on the top of that stone. That's too hard, too thick. But I knocked that off, and the fingerprints are still on that piece that I knocked off. The fingernail was up here. And the fingerprints start really close to your fingernail. And there they are. There's the sweat pores. See the sweat pores? And this piece just popped right off. It's about that thick, and it's just like exactly like this, almost like Velcro to this thing. And this is the one fingerprint ridge. It's about as thick as my thumb, so one thumb width, about that. And I drilled down into where there's blood, and it's absolutely saturated with blood. You see how much blood is in fingers? They're just absolutely leaking, literally leaking blood out of some of them. And the other one I took, where was it? Oh, no, it's a lung. I'll have to show you that in a second. Well, we're going to get into what happened over there in Turkey, but I just wanted to show you. Don't trust the things that they say. These geologists have absolutely no idea what the earth is made of. It was exactly like they said in the Bible. There was giants that were so large. Enoch talked about them 2.5 miles tall. Those are little midgets 2.5 miles tall as a puppy. These things were, if you look at the dragon in the desert, it's 1,100 miles long, and there's no question it's there. And there's another one in the United States, Quetzalcoatl, that is in that same range. So these are the plates they're talking about moving. Now, you would say to Roger, well, why would this particular place cave in? Everybody's got caves. The caves are everywhere. This particular specific place has these fracture lines in it, which are sarcomere fractures. And they actually just shift. They just shift over, just like this one here. You see that? Maybe you don't. Oh, here it is right here. You see that? When they crack, the whole thing shifts. They can snap right along the line. There's a lot of fracture zones in there. That's why. This is not just like normal dirt. There's fractures this way and this way, all over the place. So if you put a big cavity in here, boom, they're going to come down sooner or later. And that's what the cavity is right here. These are blood. Here's one running right off of here. That's exactly what happened over in Turkey. Some blood ran out and it went right with it, like probably from this area here or whatever. But this is when they see the earth crinkle a little bit. But really what happened was the cave-in from underneath caused these fracture lines. When you see the earth going, they call them plate tectonics. These are muscles. These are fracture lines on muscles. That's the plates they're talking about. They're not just gigantic plates. Well, they're muscles, and muscles rub against other muscles. You got one leg here and one leg here, or arm here and arm here. They rub against each other. They have muscles on them. That's what happened. All right, this is pretty good. This is mystery history. They're talking about a 200,000-year-old tiled floor in Oklahoma. Now, they are searching for all explanations for all these things. This is very, very similar to what has happened in Turkey. Only thing is, there's nowhere for that red blood to run out of to create big voids underneath. It's a very flat plain. Now, over there, it was on a hill, and it ran out under the hill, dragging out all of the blood with it, all of the red stuff that I showed you. Well, here, one more time. Remember these blocks. That's these blocks here. If it's just sitting here like this, it's okay. These aren't going to go anywhere, so everything's not going to collapse. But if this was on a hill, and this ran down that hill, and all that red blood ran out down that hill, then you would have an empty space here, and then because of these fracture points, it would just settle. At some point, it's going to settle down. And that's precisely identical to what you see at Turkey. This is no difference whatsoever. And then the earth shifts above. The whole thing shifts. And there it is right there in a picture of a rock. And these creatures were literally, absolutely astronomical, exactly as it says in Apollodorus 1.6.3. Read it, Apollodorus 1.6.3. It was about Typhon, one of the creatures, and his head often brushed the stars. And that's absolutely what happened. His head would have been twice as high as the space station if he was just sitting down. I'm not kidding you. This thing, it covers all of North Africa. And it's on the ancient texts, on the maps. It's spoken about. So this is not silly stuff. You want to think it's silly? I say ignorance is bliss. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not bliss, knowing this stuff. This is a little bit of a conundrum to find out truth and be in a world that dismisses truth, hates truth. That's where I am right now. I'm in a world that hates truth. Okay, here's my offer to anybody that can present anomalies, crazy things, that people that marvel over them, things that are disturbing, unexplained things that they see and nobody can explain. All I really want is some very simple email pictures, just pictures. You know, the best you can do. I don't want 1,000 of them, but just a few good ones, and if I want to follow up on it, I would contact you back. I'm not going to contact back everybody because I am overwhelmed already, and they're just things, a lot of it, there's no way in the world you can make anything out of it. Now, what I'm hoping for is these kind of crazy things like I'm showing you today, these crazy unexplained structures. Now, if there's some details, little brief details, or something about a history of it or whatever, and here's where it is, roger@mudfossils.com. And I want you to join in the research. If you have a tour business or some kind of other, whoever you are, you can join in this research just by presenting these anomalies, and then we can sort them out together, figure out what the heck is this? How did that happen? Where can we find any traces of biological, evidence, materials? And then eventually we're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper into this, where we're starting to get to chemistry, where, it's really not that sophisticated. It really isn't. It's just that it's never been thought of in this way before. And this is, and the reason is because academia hates God and hates religion and hates all of that stuff, and they want to hold on to their grasp on power, and they're not going to be able to, and because it's slipping away very quickly. Now, this is L.A. Marzulli, and I'd love to speak with him because he's on the trail of the Nephilim, and I have him right here. I got him laying all over the place.
Of the Nephilim. The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this?
First of all, it didn't say they were on the earth in those days. It said they were in the earth in those days, and then after that they were on the earth. Let's just listen to this again. I mean, the little words, a word here, a word there, can make a huge difference. Now listen. Here he says it again.
That's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth and...
See, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. No, it says they were in the earth in those days, and then after that, when the sons of God went into the daughters of men. And that's when they had these just gigantic creatures, and then it had to be wiped out. All of that stuff appears to be exactly correct now.
In those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm L.A. Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of the Nephilim.
All right, join me, buddy. Let's join together. I want anybody that's looking to think of the evidence that I can support and present. And so far, the people that I found that are looking, I don't know whether they think I'm just out there in left field or what, but I have all the evidence. There's nothing here that I'm saying I can't support. Now, you look at all this stuff and you marvel at it, yes, absolutely. But when you understand what it's made out of and the biology of it, you marvel more. And then you become disturbed. Okay, my friends, the next video is going to be like a box of chocolate candy. This thing here is from Mystery History, and they're going to be talking about this paved thing, and they have all kinds of other formations that they don't understand, and they're trying to figure out how they were formed, and all the things about them, how they really have no clue at the moment, but they're trying to relate different cultures to different areas on the earth and mix them all together, and what they really don't understand is they're all working with the same materials, which is bodily tissues. They're not using the same construction techniques necessarily. I'm not saying they're not. I am saying that they're working with the same materials, and they don't understand the materials. That's where we got to go first, the materials. Then we'll look at the construction techniques. Because I can tell you what this is carved out of, and I can tell you what this is here, these little stripes and so forth, and the whole 9 yards. And I will show them to you very, very soon. It's just absolutely stunning what there is to look at. And this thing here, this one here is the one that got me like crazy. Where was it? This one in China. It's just like a box of candy. I'm telling you, this is just amazing. All these different formations they're showing. Anyway, it's going to be fun.